It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Howdy, howdy, ho. Hey, 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 hey. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are ya? How are ya? Nice to have you here. Lamont Patterson is here today. Lamont is an entertainment business guru, I think would be a nice word. He's been in the business for over 60 years, which I found amazing, considering he just doesn't look that old. He looks great. He's an entrepreneur, producer, record producer, TV show producer. He's an actor, and he's also an internet radio host and a humanitarian. He will be up in a few minutes. I've got kind of a funny story that I didn't tell Lamont. I didn't want it to become our introduction as this crazy story, but it actually did happen. I had Lamont scheduled for 3 p.m. for the interview, for the recording. I got to the studio about a little bit before 2. And I was getting set up, turned on the computer, turned on the mixing console, and was making a nice cup of tea for myself to sit down and get ready for the interview. While I was making my tea, the mixing console started to smoke. I mean, literally, smoke was billowing. I smelled this awful kind of plastic burning smell. And I looked over at the mixing board, and there's smoke coming out of the back. And I thought, oh my God. So I went over, I turned it off, I unplugged it. Needless to say, the thing completely fried out. I don't know why. It's on surge protectors. I don't understand what happened. It just decided its time was up and it was going to die right then and there. So I went into a complete panic. So I kind of had to makeshift a way to record our interview because I didn't have a backup particularly. So I had to record straight through the computer rather than going to a board, which I prefer using a board, and just record using a MixPad program. So for those of you that have been following the show, you'll hear that my vocal qualities are not that wonderful on the interview with Lamont because I didn't have time to sort of tweak the thing and get the sound audio to where I like it. I tried doing it in the editing process, but it still sounds like I'm talking in a cave. I don't know. But anyways, help is on the way. We've ordered a new board, so it should be here very shortly. Before we get to Lamont, we've got some music. The artist is from Brisbane, Australia. Her name is Aislinn Sharp, and she's currently recording her first album, On the Cusp. Aislinn is looking forward to venturing her music across the lands and nightclubs for the first time. If you want to check her out, check out her Facebook page at facebook.com/AISLINNSHARP. We've got 2 of her songs to play today I'm real excited about. The first one is called Unsung Hero, and the second one is called The Wall featuring Joel Turner. So here now is Aislinn Sharp, an Unsung Hero, followed by The Wall.
Lonely person in a crowded space who will love me, fill this emptiness. Misplaced my trust in many charming face. Are you for real, promising your time? How could you touch me from another place? What do you know? You know hearts beneath from across the land. Try to understand me. I'm an island. Cross the Sycamore, take my hands. Let's make some plans here. This could be the stars. Singing la la la, la la la, la la la. Are you my unsung hero? La la la, la la la. La la la, be my unsung hero. keep away the pain. But do you miss warm affection? Let me closer, let me in this rain. How do you know, hides beneath from across the land. Try to understand me, I'm an island. Cross the sea, come on, take my hands. Let's make some plans here, this could be the start. Singing la la la, la la la, la la la. Are you my unsung hero? La la la, la la la, la la la. Be my unsung hero. La la la. You hold me in a place where I can be myself. There's freedom in this space to recreate myself. I hear it in your voice, I know you care a lot. I see it in your eyes, I know you're faking out. I'll be my unsung hero. Are you my unsung hero? 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 Be my unsung hero. Are you my unsung hero? 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 Standing tall like the wall, gathered to celebrate. You were standing tall, strong, hot and faced. Yeah, caught my eye, stood out from afar. How you stole my eye, wondered who you are. Met through a good friend, hit it up some surf the weekend. Summer days, spending time together. Then we were best friends. Fast forward, you don't let me in. Walls up like lots between our fingertips. How long can I sit now, waiting for you? If you cannot move, talk it through. What can I do? Our undefined relationship brings me down. Will you make the call? Nothing at all. Can love between the bricks in the wall. Here I stand, guided by your wall. Has love gone to bits, gone to blocked in the road? Texting, no big deal. If you don't tell me how you feel, are they your pants? Good, they're not mine. Feels like dark times. It's before 89, divided from the other side. Why? How long can I sit down, waiting for you? can I sit now, waiting for you? If you cannot move, talk through. What can I do? Our undefined relationship brings me down. Will you make the call? There's nothing at all can lie between the bricks in the wall. I don't know what I'm gonna do now about this wall. Break it down now.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
In-house production and recording in Louisiana Publishing Company is now offering a special for podcasters on their CD Pro Radio network. For just $20 a month, CD Pro Radio will broadcast your podcast twice a week on their network. This is a great and inexpensive opportunity for podcasters to gain some exposure for their show without having to spend a lot of money. Please check them out at cdproradio.com. That's cdproradio.com.
Go listen, download, and subscribe to The Douglas Coleman Show. It's available at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. Also on iTunes, Spreaker, and YouTube. The Douglas Coleman Show is an internationally syndicated talk and music show that features fascinating and sometimes famous guests from all aspects of the entertainment industry. The topics can range from light and fluffy to sober and serious. Our focus is on music artists, but we also feature producers, authors, directors, and even promoters. The Douglas Coleman Show. Sometimes chat, sometimes music, always entertaining. Again, it's available today at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. You can also connect with them on Facebook at Douglas Coleman Show 1, follow on Twitter at Douglas Coleman 3, and you can even find them on TuneIn Radio. Again, that's the Douglas Coleman Show at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, and more. Go listen, download, subscribe, and share with your social networks today.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
Wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome my guest, Lamont Patterson. Hi, Lamont. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How you doing today, Douglas?
Oh, doing very well. Your bio says that you've been in the entertainment business for over 60 years. Was that a typo or is that right?
No, I hate to date myself, but actually that's the truth.
Well, you know, looking at your pictures, I mean, you don't look old enough to have been in the business for 60 years. I mean, I wouldn't have even thought you were 60 years old.
Well, thank you. I definitely appreciate the compliment, Douglas. The secret is ginseng and honey and plenty of exercise. And a quick story. I don't know if your listeners know anything about the R&B group, the Dramatics. One of my friends, he said, this entertainment business will kill you. He said, you can't smoke all the smoke, you can't drink all the drink, and you can't sleep with all the women. You have to take care of yourself in this industry. If not, it will kill you. And I never forgot that, Douglas. I never forgot that. I've always tried to eat right and do things in moderation and take care of myself and try to live a righteous life.
Well, that's very good because I know in the entertainment business, and I'm sure you know, a lot of the great ones and a lot of them just died young because of, well, like you said, too much drink, too much smoke, too much drugs, too much whatever.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because a lot of artists, they need to really think about what they want to do in the business. Are they trying to be an artist to have longevity, or if they just want to burn bright and don't care about burning out?
Exactly.
I mean, those are real thoughts. So a lot of artists, they go out and, they go to superstardom, they get to that level, but they're not here. They're gone too soon, like you said. So, I mean, what did you really do at the end of the day? I mean, were you trying to establish something? I think I'd rather be here and enjoy it. How about you?
I agree with you. I mean, there have been some great ones that were just cut short way too soon.
Way too soon.
Yeah. And if they had lived, how much great music they could have done, over the course of a normal life of, 70, 80 years, something like that. But some of these people like Jimi Hendrix, perfect example.
Man, you pulled that one right out of the top of my head. That's exactly who I was thinking about.
Oh, yeah, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, there was a whole bunch of them in the 60s. Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison. Oh, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And all of those people just is a shame. Really was a shame. But I agree with you. I think that it's better to do it. You take care of yourself, you're going to be around long enough that you can make something great over and over again.
Yes.
Rather than just having one great hit and then you're gone, Well, on the flip side of that coin, though, there's always two sides to an argument. A lot of people have become much more famous after they were dead.
Right.
They were really struggling while they were alive. And as soon as they died, all of their records went to number one. And I guess Elvis is making more money now than he did when he was alive.
Well, Elvis, Michael Jackson, you can throw Prince into that too.
Yeah.
And a lot of that too has a lot to do with business. So I don't know if you want to go into that conversation, but I know where we live.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're in LA, right?
Well, I mean the country,
America.
Where, like you said, if the powers that be feel like that you're more productive and you're a better cash cow deceased, then I mean sometimes so be it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a sick world, but I get it. I mean, you're right. When Prince died, all of his records went to number one, and they hadn't done that since they came out. So, and I think Michael Jackson sold, 5 million copies of Thriller 2 days after he died, something like that. So, yeah,
and that's not to mention, Douglas, how many is going to come out in the next 20 years that you haven't heard.
Right.
We still near hearing new Tupac records.
That's true. That's very true. All right. Well, let's get back to your career. So what was the first thing you did? If you started 60 years ago, what was the first thing you did in this that you would consider your first job or your first gig in the entertainment business?
Oh, wow. I think the first thing I did was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in the music industry because my parents wanted me to play a keyboard, organ in a church and do that. But in my era, there wasn't very many how can I say this and be politically correct?
Oh, don't worry about it.
There wasn't really that many super masculine type dudes that was playing piano and keyboards in churches. They all were kind of like the sweet potato types.
I get you. Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. I said, you guys got to give me a horn and give me some type of instrument a man play. You know what I mean? So they messed around with the flute, the clarinet, and finally we ended up on the saxophone. So I ended up playing a horn for a bunch of years. And then all of a sudden, I started realizing that the horn players wasn't very exciting to the girls. We didn't have, the Kenny G's and all that. We had the John Coltrane's and, Roland Kirk, those guys that played jazz, but they were just straight ahead jazz players, but still they wasn't very attractive, to the younger girls, the ones that I was looking at. So my cousin had this group called the Young Hearts, and he worked with little Anthony and the Imperials, man. And
Oh, yeah.
like most young guys, it's very impressionable. You see the nice suits and the nice pretty cars and all the cute girls sitting around the rehearsal and stuff. And I said, I want to sing, man. Shit, I don't want to do this horn thing no more, man. I want a microphone. I want to get out in front. I want to do something like that. So my cousin told me, he said, man, you finish school and, I help you with your music. And, all through school, I played in band and, I sang in choir. And at that time, there were a lot more music classes accessible to children and, junior high school, elementary school, and even high schools, and I hate that they took a lot of those programs, out of those schools. We lost a lot of musicians with that.
Yeah, true. The band in school isn't quite like, I'm probably a little bit younger than you, but I'm 54, so I'm old enough to remember when, they really stressed playing real instruments. I mean, this was long before the computer MIDI instruments and, nobody's interested in playing the trumpet anymore or the violin. It seems, unless it's classical musicians.
Yes.
Now it's easier just to program it into your computer and get some kind of sample going and build it, computer-wise. But that's its own art. It's a whole different a different place. We could spend hours on that conversation, but
yeah, when they started sampling, it made a lot of money for old school artists across the board. Regardless of the genre, they sampled everybody's music, so it made a lot of people money. But I just hate the fact that we've lost a couple generations of musicians, because I've had guys even tell me, man, well, if you play it for me, I could play it. And I'm like, well, hell, if I play it for you, I play it myself. Shit, I don't. What is that? You know what I mean? But they didn't learn how to read music. They learned how to be computer lit, and I get it. Because I had to learn too, but I'm self-taught. But I'm glad I was smart enough to stay on the learning curve when computers came out, because we have a lot of artists out there, hate to call names, are really not computer literate. You ask them to send you an MP3, they don't know what you're talking about. But if you want to be relative, and I'll say this, and I hope your listeners understand, if you're an artist, musician, whatever, you need to stay current and find out. Other than that, it's real quick to become a dinosaur. I mean, the music industry has changed so much over the years.
Yeah.
We used to have record stores on every corner. We used to have one stops, and how we serve music to the consumer was completely different than it is today.
Yes. I started in the early 80s. I'm a musician also. And I was in New York City at that time, playing in little clubs and doing it sort of the old-fashioned way. We had a band together playing rock and roll music. And right at that time, a couple of years was when the sampling started. In the early 80s was really when it came on, right around the same time as MTV. And it was also right at the same time when the record labels were more interested in what you looked like than what you sounded like. If you remember the rock and roll bands of the 70s, most of those guys, God bless them, they were ugly. I mean, they didn't care what they looked like.
Don't be talking about Mick Jagger.
Well, Mick Jagger or most of the guys from Steely Dan. I could list a whole bunch of them. Grand Funk Railroad. I mean, you name them.
That was one of my favorite groups, was Steely Dan.
Yeah, the Allman Brothers. All of those guys, they look like they just rolled off the dirt wagon. But their music was fantastic. And the thing was, in those days, nobody cared. Nobody cared what you looked like, because there was no videos. There was no, once they had to look at you, then it changed the whole look. I mean, it seemed like overnight we went from the hippie dirtbag look to the pretty boys with the big fluffy hair in the 80s, And all of a sudden, and then the music went downhill. There were some good hair bands, but it wasn't the same.
No, they found out they could do the Milli Vanilli.
Yeah. God, Milli Vanilli. Yes. Oh, yeah. I remember that. And now it's like everybody's doing Milli Vanilli, and it's all right. It's acceptable. Do you remember the controversy when that came out? I mean, those two guys, they were like banished from the kingdom forever.
Exactly. They were crushed.
They were crushed.
They ended up passing away, didn't they? One died, kill himself or something.
I think so.
Something happened.
I think I heard that.
Yeah, and that was a shame too, because that was almost like a joint effort. It wasn't just like them two that was part of that. It was a whole group of people was part of that.
It was a conspiracy. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, major.
And it probably wasn't their fault. The record label, I'm sure, was behind that.
Oh, totally. And like most artists, their whole thing is on to be successful, and a lot of times, desperate people take on desperate measures, and anything necessary to make it, and unfortunately, that's how a lot of artists look at stuff. They're just trying to be successful.
So let me get back to you for a second. You are your list here, you do everything. You're an entrepreneur, producer, publisher, record producer, actor, internet radio host, and humanitarian.
Yes.
The musician part, you said you played piano to start?
I did not play piano because some of the guys that I ended up being friends and meeting later on in my career, like I said, they were a little sweet, so I ended up playing a horn.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, that's not necessarily true of all piano players. I mean, if you go back
I go back to my generation, because all we saw was like Liberace, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard. I'm just speaking to people that were close around my circle. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. Not all, but the ones that were kind of big that I was around, and people kept mentioning to me, well, look at Liberace. He's in Las Vegas, and he's an excellent pianist. And
well, yeah, Liberace would fall into that category for sure. And Little Richard. But I was thinking of people like Duke Ellington, and I mean, those guys were men, manly men and great musicians, but I get your point. So anyways, you started playing saxophone, right?
Yes.
And then you moved to singing?
Yeah, my first band that I ever had when I thought I wanted to have a band was a group called Elements of Peace. This gentleman named Aaron Neville, who's known from the Neville Brothers out of New Orleans, helped me with my first group. And I had some horn players that I actually got from Little Richard and another artist named Johnny Taylor. And that was part of my first band called Elements of the Peace.
Wow. I'm looking over the list of people that you worked with, and there's some very impressive names on here. I wanted to ask you about a couple of them. Okay. First one, Marvin Gaye, because I'm a huge Marvin Gaye fan. I love his music. What kind of work did you do with Marvin Gaye?
Well, Marvin Gaye, we actually met from through another friend of mine, which was one of my proteges named James Baker, and he was one of the founding members of the R&B group New Birth that I had the pleasure of working with. He introduced me to Marvin. We actually went out to his house a few times and got to play basketball with him. And I was first starting out to try to do a solo project. And Marvin and I got together to produce a record. And actually, we ended up producing a record. I, invested quite a bit of money, and everything was good. But like most projects, everything you touch is not going to go gold. Sometimes they go wood.
Yeah, that's true.
But Marvin and I, we were great friends. And, I have another, should I say, another outlook on that guy than what was publicized. A lot of times what you read about in the media and the press is not who this real person is, So, but anyway, Marvin's a great talent, great guy. Rest in peace,
Yeah, rest in peace. That was a tragic situation.
Yeah, but I understood. I understood it from both sides, though. I did. I did.
All I remember about the story was that his father shot him. That's all I remember.
Yeah, well, let me pitch you this. I don't know if you had kids, but I've been in that situation before. But sometimes, Marvin was basically, he loved his mother. He loved his father. His father didn't want him to do circular music. His father wanted him to do gospel. I got that. His father was a preacher in the church. Marvin did his own thing and became very successful at it. And he did everything for his mom. But, his father was a recipient of it as well. But sometimes in that, is like you can't go to your parents' house and say and do whatever you want to say and do, even though you purchased a house for them.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yes, I get it. Because they're still your parents.
They're still your parents, and that's still your father. And even though who you are, you're still my son. And I don't care how old you get. I don't care how famous you get. I don't care how much money you get. Certain things you're just not going to say to me. And if me and my woman that happens just to be your mama, we get into it, that's still our business.
Right. So I get that.
That's what I mean. I understand from both sides, and it's tragic, but that's family mess. It's just sad that it went that far, but I understand. You know what I mean?
Right.
My son is not going to raise his hand at me under any circumstance. You know what I mean? So.
Well, there's very funny stories, throughout. I work with one of the producers for my music is Stuart Epps, who was the assistant producer for all the old Elton John albums back in the early 70s, the good stuff, like the first 6 or 7 albums. He apprenticed under Gus Dudgeons, who did all the old recordings, all his famous songs. And Elton has been having an ongoing feud with his mother for like the last 15 or 20 years. And it was a funny story. I'll just tell it real quick. Stuart was always been very good friends with Elton's mom because Stuart has known Elton since before he was Elton. They worked together at the publisher, the Dick James Music, who was the publisher for the Beatles. And Elton and Bernie Taupin came in as 17-year-old kids, and Stuart was working there. So they used to go around to Elton's house back when he was named Reg Dwight and have tea and whatever else they did. So he became good friends with Elton's mom. And Elton's mom is still alive, still kicking. She had a 90th birthday party a year or two ago. Elton was invited, refused to come. And so Stuart kind of organized this thing with all of these people that are sort of on Elton John's shit list now. Mm-hmm. And Elton won't talk to his mother, even though he supports her somewhat financially. So his mother, as a kind of a dig back to him, hired an Elton John impersonator to come and play at the party for like 500 of Elton's ex-friends. This guy was a fake Elton John. and he did a whole show, like all of Elton's music. I mean, the guy was really good for an impersonator. He sounded and looked just like Elton. But just this idea that my real son won't talk to me, so I'm going to get an impersonator to come and play at my 90th birthday. And when Elton found out about it, I guess he went through the roof. I guess he was just beside himself, But
It is funny.
Again, it goes back to what you're saying. Okay, he's Elton John. He's a superstar. But that's still his mother.
Exactly.
So I lost respect for the guy. Even though I love his music and I'm a great fan, I lost respect for him as a man because he's treating his mother like that. Exactly. I think that's just really lousy.
And most men and women, if you don't have if you have no respect for your parents, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lack respect for other individuals out here in this world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with the exception of if your parents were really bad to you, like if they beat you or they abused you or something like that, and you got away from them, okay, I get that, you know? But if they were good, loving parents who tried their best to raise you right, and then you went off and did some great thing, and now you think you're above all of them, then I think that's wrong.
I find that too, Douglas, because we do a relationship show as well. We find that happens mostly with families that decide to be friends with their children opposed to be parents to their children.
Well, now that's interesting. You think it's impossible for parents and children to be friends?
Yes, in a lot of cases, yeah. I think the line should be very clear. I'm your mother or I'm your father. I'm not your homeboy down the street or your girlfriend around the corner. We have clear boundaries. Yes, I do. I do believe that. Yes.
Well, it's interesting. Well, okay, let's talk about that on your show because I think that'd be a great topic. I got a lot of ideas on that one. But
Okay.
let's get on with your career. Okay, the other one I wanted to ask you about was Quincy Jones. I mean, major person in the music business. What did you do with Quincy Jones?
I managed this guy named Bill Summers who had this group, the Bill Summers Experience, and Bill is a world-renowned percussionist. With Herbie Hancock, Ndugu Chancellor, George Duke. He's the player with anybody. But anyway, that was during my management stint. And we ended up working on the Back on the Block project with Quincy Jones, with Sting, Patrice Rushen. Let me see who else was on that project. It was a ton of people on that. Al Shore. There was a ton of people on that project that I got to work with on a daily basis, which was great experience because I learned a lot from watching Quincy. The first thing he would say was, "Whoever you are and whatever you do, just park your ego outside." I never forgot that, and I've always tried to stay, humble, because your fans, we look to these people to support our music and like our music, and without them, we're really nothing. We could always make music for ourselves, but if we're trying to do this as a business or as a living, we have to remember that. We're making music for other people, and you can't come out there with these massive egos because don't nobody want to work with you, really, So I really like the way he handled the studio and the people that he worked with and the respect that he garnered from those people. And I've always tried to, maintain that in, my sessions, I mean, we in here to make music. We're not here to have no pissing contest.
Well, that's true. I heard a great line that said, your talent will get you in the door, but your character will keep you in the room. And I think that pretty much sums it up. I've worked with musicians that were just so talented, but I couldn't stand them, as an individual because they were so, I don't want to say egotistical, but maybe that's the right word.
That is what it is. We all need to have a certain amount of that. Now, I'll say this too, in all fairness. A certain amount of ego is like ethyl or high octane in your gas, in your gas tank. We need a certain amount of that because everybody's not going to like you. And if you're fragile, you're not going to survive in this industry. You're just not. So you're going to need a certain amount of that. But at the same time, balance is key. You really have to have balance. How many artists, Douglas, have you have to say, man, well, you need to get me a job. You need to get me booked somewhere. And they haven't even took the time to even brand themselves. I mean, who knows you? Who gonna pay you to come perform to them? Don't nobody know you. So, I mean, that's like ego that's out of check. They've already arrived, but they haven't paid no dues yet.
Some people, it's interesting because I get a lot of music submissions for the radio show, and I listen to everything. About half of what I get, I'll play, and the other half I don't because it's just not quite up to speed. It could be just they can't sing or the production is lousy. But one thing I found interesting is that the ones that maybe aren't quite the top of the heap are the ones that seems to be really proficient at social media and getting their stuff out there. They're doing the legwork. Where the ones that are like super talented, some of them, not all, but some of them have problems with that because I think their attitude is the music should sell itself.
Well, that too, and it's their parents pat them on the head and not really being honest with them, you know. I mean, it's crazy, but I understand. I would rather, and I've turned down a whole bunch of talented people that sing like God, but you know, I don't like the attitude. I don't like their personality. I already know it's going to be a problem. You know, I already know that. I would rather work with somebody that's not as talented, that I see growth. You know, that I see that they have at least the ability to take positive criticism and direction, you know, because the talent could always be perfected. I mean, that's what
Right.
practice is. You know, practice, you keep practicing, you're going to get better. You know, but somebody like you said, that got one of those God gifted talents that can sing a bird out of a tree, but you can't work with them. You can't stand their arrogance. You know, you can't tell them nothing. They're going to mess up the business. They're going to go behind you and screw up whatever you do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You've also got a cooking show, Cooking with My Homies.
Yes, that's in pre-production right now. I'm very, very, very excited about that because this show is really going to bring everything that I've worked with and worked for over the years, kind of like almost to a point. Cooking with My Homies is a celebrity-based cooking show. It's going to feature artists past and present in all genres. We're in the process of shooting 6 pilots now. We're doing R&B, we're doing hip hop, we're doing rock, we're doing country, we're doing jazz, and we're going to do a gospel pilot. Right now, I have artists like Cuba Gooding Sr. that's scheduled, Lenny Williams from the Tower of Power, you know, Millie Jackson, R&B sensation, it's an old school artist that's world renowned as well. And I've been talking recently to Vince Neil from the Motley Crue.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
About having him represent the rock genre. But we're very excited about that. It'll be, you know, going to Food Network, but we're not going to pigeonhole on Food Network because it's more of a performance-driven show with the artists that just know how to cook a little something, you know, and we're going to talk about, you know, the grandmother's secret dish and their spaghetti sauce, and, you know, we're going to have them rock the stage. So it's a little something, a little different twist to the cooking thing.
So this is going to be kind of like Martha Stewart for musicians?
Well, a little bit different. Yeah. When you say Martha Stewart, I'm thinking about the new show Martha Stewart and Snoop have, but not like that, because their show that they had, are you familiar with their show? The Martha?
No.
Oh,
I'm thinking of the
okay,
old one, you know,
they
where
have a new show now, Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg.
Oh.
Yes, man,
really?
It's off the chain.
Oh, that's
I think
funky combination.
I think Snoop might have Martha hitting the blunt, but you didn't hear it from me. he might have Martha smoking a blunt. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Listen, more power
but anyway,
to it,
you know, they do, they cook, but they do more of a competitive type thing, you know. But my cooking show is more of a performance-driven show that show artists that may just like to cook a little something, you know what I mean? They may cook something when they're on tour. You know, that might be their passion.
So they're going to come on your show and cook something and then do like
they're going to do the song first. They're going to go.
Oh, do the song
We're
first.
We're going to do the performance stage thing, introduce the show, do the performance thing, you know, engage the audience. And after the performance, then they'll transition into the kitchen to the apron.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I'd watch that.
You know, and then we're looking to, you know, pull a unsuspecting personality audience, you know, to come up to the stage and help their favorite artists put together whatever, you know.
That sounds fantastic. And
that way we'll be able to engage all the artists from all genres. It doesn't matter to me, you know, we can provide a great entertainment performance with artists that like to cook. Everybody like to eat, and everybody like to be entertained.
That's true.
So Patti LaBelle, I think she has her pies and stuff in all the Walmarts or something. So I'm gonna go after them. I understand George Foreman has a new meat line that's coming out. So I'm hoping to have all of them on the show.
There's been a few of those kind of. I'm trying to think now. Paul Newman came out with salad dressing. Right. Yes. And then Linda McCartney had her all veggie stuff. Yeah, there's been a few of those. Dan Aykroyd has vodka now.
Yes.
He's got a vodka line. Yeah, that's all right. What kind of food are you gonna brand for you?
Well, I don't know. I'm a country boy, man. I'm from Texas, so I'm all across the board with things that I like. I am. So I don't know. I as like people asking me what's my favorite music, and I'm like, well, I like what everybody else like, But I don't know. I'm kind of all across the board in my food, man. I kind of like everything.
Well, okay. I guess you'll have to give that one some thought. I want to go back real quick to the music, and then we're going to just talk about your radio show a little bit. One of the people that I wanted to ask you if you'd worked with is not on the list, but I'm a big fan of Miles Davis. Did you ever work with him?
Unfortunately, no. Miles was like a couple blocks before me.
Oh, all right.
I did get to work with the late, great Ike Turner, Tina Turner, them. Tina Turner gave me my first mink coat.
Mink coat, wow.
Yeah, when it's fashionable to wear a mink coat, you may wear a mink coat now. The PETA people get pissed off at you.
Yeah, they're going to throw blue paint at you or something if you get...
Yeah. I remember this lady tried to do that to me many years ago. I was over at Fox Plaza over there by the Fox studio over there in Century City. And this is when PETA had just first started, but this was just about the same time that I was just able to first get my first mink coat. Come on, that's big shit now. Everybody had mink coats back in the day,
Sure.
You name it, Liz Taylor, everybody. That was the thing to have. You arrived once you got a mink coat. If you didn't have a mink coat, you were nothing. Man, I had just got my first mink coat, man. I thought I was the shit too. And this lady got on the elevator, man, and I seen her over there standing, kind of like over in the corner, and she was snarling and snotting and stuff. And, I just thought she had bad sinuses, was having a bad day, but she was staring at my coat. She said, well, if I had some red paint, I'd probably throw some red paint on that jacket you got on. And I'm like, that's not nice, lady. I didn't say shit about that cow that you slaughtered to get that leather coat you got on.
Right, exactly. What's interesting about mink coats is if you remember back in the 70s, a good mink coat would cost $10,000 or $20,000. Easy. Yeah, and now I've seen them on eBay. They're practically giving them away.
Go to your local pawn shop, Douglas.
They can't give them away now because there just seems to be no market for them.
No value. Yeah. Same with diamonds.
Yeah.
Same thing with diamonds. I mean, diamonds was cool until the rappers started having them hanging down to their ankles. Now they done devalued diamonds. They don't care nothing about diamonds no more. I mean, the gold still holds some value.
Yeah, gold has been pretty stable for a while.
But diamonds are basically worthless now. You can go get a carat for a couple $100.
Yeah. Well, they've got some really good synthetic ones now. That are real difficult to tell the difference. So unless you want to bring your jeweler along every place you go, you could get a fake one, a synthetic one, and it looks just as nice. And you just tell everybody it's real. And they're not going to know the difference.
That's another thing that drove the value down, because if don't nobody know the difference, why are you going to go spend $10,000 for 1 carat stone? I mean, that's unless you just want to stroke your own ego. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it and got the money.
Yeah. The last thing we're going to talk about is your internet radio show. Tell me about that. What is your show about?
On Wednesdays, actually today, we do a show called I Am Indie, which is short for I Am Independent. I started that 9 years ago when I decided I didn't want to really get out there and have to fight with the majors anymore to distribute, market, and promote my music for World Movement Records. So I ended up trying to look at all the ways that I could play and broadcast the music from the artists that, we represent. So that's what brought about I Am Indie, which is on, Blog Talk Radio. We're on every Wednesday. We've been there for the past 9 years, and we've interviewed and talked to every artist pretty much in the business. We've dealt with managers, producers, R&B, like I said, hip hop, rock, jazz. We've dealt with pretty much everybody in the business. On Sundays, we do a show on relationships, which is called Can I Play a Play on Blog Talk Radio. Again, we've had that show there as well for, 9 years, where we've interviewed, people running for the president of the United States. Recently, we had Sam Childers, the original Machine Gun Preacher, the one that they did that movie that Gerard Butler starred in. And we dealt with all topics across the board, relationships, drama, whatever. It's a self-help program. We always try to do something that people could take away and benefit from.
Do you do these shows live or do you record them?
Well, they're on Blog Talk Radio, which they are actually live. They are live, and they go out on podcast as well.
You're very brave to do a live show. I used to do a live show, and I stopped doing a live show because the only part that was interesting, or the only part that became interesting, was when stuff broke down. And that really wasn't the kind of show I was going for. People say, oh, I love that part where you were talking to yourself for 10 minutes when Skype crapped out. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So I'm going to pre-recorded. I can edit, I can cut, and
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be on Sirius next year, because I'm trying to move our shows over there to Sirius satellite, so we can be in everybody's house and everybody's car as well. And I forgot one other show. Tomorrow we also have a show called In the Ring, which is we deal with boxers and MMA stuff. I have Richard Steele, the boxing trainer, on our show tomorrow at 7, and that's called In the Ring on Blog Talk Radio. So we'll be talking about the whole fight game in Vegas, the fighters that he's trained over the years, and the whole boxing thing.
Wow, you are busy. You've got 3 shows going. You're doing the cooking show. And you're still doing music? You're still producing music?
Yes, we have a new album coming out the first of the year by one of our artists, Snoopy So Fly. It's going to be a dynamic CD, which is he's from the hip hop genre. And also my acting thing. It's all entertainment. I've been fortunate in the last couple of years. I've been in pretty much all the top TV shows that's out. From, CSI, Grey's Anatomy, Blackish, The Last Ship. I just recently worked with Tracy Morgan not too long ago. So, I mean, it's all entertainment, Douglas, at the end of the day. And I guess that's my overall dream, is to build a full service entertainment company where we're going to do film, TV, we're going to publish books for people, we're going to handle their music. We're going to just be self-contained. We're going to be touching it all. And I've been working really, really hard to, establish myself in all those areas so we can open some doors and create opportunities for other people.
You said you just worked with Tracy Morgan. How's he doing?
He's doing well. I mean, he's on his road to recovery,
Right.
I mean, he's still not jumping up and running around as fast as he would like, but he's coming along.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. Well, Lamont, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
We got to kind of wrap it up here. Lamont Patterson, do you have a website we can tell people about?
Absolutely. My website is worldmovemententerprise.com or World Movement Publishing, World Movement Records, whichever you want to put in there. You can get it. Twitter is World Movement. Instagram is World Movement. Everything is World Movement because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move the world with our music.
Oh, super. And does that have information about you and about your podcasts and your cooking show, or is that going to all be separate websites?
No, if you go to World Movement Enterprise or worldmovement.com, there's links to all of our radio shows on there. There's links to all of our books that we publish. There's links to our music, our TV shows. All the information is right there in one place. World Movement is the place to be.
Okay, Lamont, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Douglas. It's been a pleasure, and anytime.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Lamont Patterson and Aislinn Sharp. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.